The C-SPAN networks bring you long-form public affairs programming from the nation's capital and are a public service of your television provider. C-SPAN, created by cable.
I wanted to transition to something that's of interest to your constituents in Northern Virginia, as well as everyone who sort of lives and works in the Washington metropolitan area, which is the state of the public transportation system that we call Metro around here. There have been reports, and there's been some discussion that there may need to be entire lines that may need to be shut down for weeks at a time for massive repairs. The system is now at its 40th anniversary, and what do you think that is the federal role in terms of what needs to be done, and also what one of the issues has been with the state governments, and you used to be the governor in Virginia. What does everyone need to contribute, and is there any chance that that's actually going to happen?
Well, Niels, let me take this in two bites. First of all, as a longtime supporter of Metro, I've been really disturbed and frankly angered at the failure to enforce a culture of safety. We saw a number of years back the horrible tragedy in Maryland where a number of individuals were killed. A little over a year ago, we saw the incident where a Virginian was killed at L'Enfant Plaza. And as we dug deeper and deeper, we saw that actually lack of appropriately trained personnel at the control center for Metro. And we would beat on the previous management and board, you got to get this fixed. We actually changed some of the jurisdiction of oversight of Metro from the federal level to Department of Transportation in terms of some of the oversight, as well as for unprecedented, brought in federal transit to help both do the safety audits and then actually put some personnel in place so that the ridership would have that level of security. We saw recently the new general manager, Paul Wiedenfeld, actually shut down the system for a one-day basis because of potential of the kind of harm that fires in the tunnels that could create smoke challenges, the way of what happened at L'Enfant Plaza. I think we were all a little shocked at that, but candidly, I think it sent a good message to this general manager, safety first. So I commend him on that. I think that some of I've heard just recently as well that he's made comments that the possibility of actually shutting down lines for extended period of time was not on the table, but it will require perhaps less service on the weekends and in the evenings so they can do the kind of renovations that are needed. So I think we're seeing a movement in terms of the culture of safety move forward, and I want to give the new GM time to put his team in place and move forward on that. On the financing piece, let's face it, we had the brightest, shiniest, newest metro in America 40 years ago. That system has aged. I do think there have been challenges around ongoing maintenance. Unfortunately, this is not just a Metro problem. Deferred maintenance is a challenge all across much of our infrastructure. The National Park Service has got $6 billion of deferred maintenance, and we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Park Service this year. So how we make sure that we maintain the funding for Metro is critically important. We've seen members of the House want to cut the federal government's commitment that was initiated a number of years back, actually by former Republican Congressman Tom Davis, who did a great job, where $150 million a year the feds were going to put in. If we were to cut that, you potentially put Metro into a semi-death spiral, because that means Metro then has to increase the fares, and ridership has gone down. You increase the fares, that means less people ride, that means you're in more financial duress. So holding the line and honoring the federal government's commitment to that $150 million at least a year is critically important. This is not just our region's metro system, but this is the nation's metro system in terms of people visiting our national capital region. At the same time, making sure that states, and more specifically the localities, chip in their share as well, I think is going to be an ongoing debate. Part of making the case for additional revenues, whether it's through dedicated revenue structures or making sure we keep the federal money or increase the regional contribution, those arguments are harder to make when you don't have that culture of safety. So I do think the new general manager has sent a strong signal about safety and about maintenance. I think the shutting down of the system, while an imposition for that one day a couple weeks back was, in retrospect, probably the right shot across all our bow, that both to the ridership, to us as policymakers, but also to the employees, that inappropriate safety focus will not be tolerated. And I think the more he can continue that, the better we'll be able to then shore up the financing that is necessary.
Mike, 7 minutes.
Senator, you mentioned dedicated funding. Assuming the new general manager can get the safety footing correct, has the time come for the region's jurisdictions to get together and do a dedicated funding source, whether it's a regional sales tax?
As somebody who got my tail whooped when I advocated for a non-metro but regional Northern Virginia taxing ability off the sales tax. Now that was 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago actually. I'm not going to.
Virginia's done it now. We now have
Virginia
a regional sale.
Based on Governor McDonald's approach, took a step in the right direction, I think, in terms of additional transportation funding. But whether there would be a metro specific, I think it's too early to judge on that until we see candidly continued improvements in terms of the operations and safety culture.
Do you think that the congressional representatives of all these jurisdictions need to play a role in?
I think our number one job, in terms of the congressional delegation, is making sure that those folks in the House who want to cut any kind of discretionary spending, clearly have gone after Metro in the past, that we keep the Fed's commitment to this critical infrastructure, not just for the region, but candidly, this is how the country and the world sees Washington.
So we